Well, hello everyone and welcome to a very special episode of Wild Your Garden. And today I have a man who has not only received an MBE, but he is well known globally for his conservation efforts, and this is Tim Appleton. Now Tim, I've known you for a few years, and it all started at the bird fair, didn't it? A few years ago, but we'll come on to that in a little while. But I'd like to touch on your life in general, I think, because there's a bit of a story, I think, and we'll try and keep this under 3 hours, shall we?
Or 3 days, maybe.
Yeah. But no, thank you for giving me the time. And obviously the backdrop we have is a splendid one from your garden, which is this wonderful little patch, which again we'll touch on briefly, and what sort of wildlife you get in a bit. But I wanted to start, if I may, where it all began for you. So you are a local lad, aren't you?
Absolutely not. No, I come from Bristol.
That's of course.
And
I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I come from Bristol, where I actually was lucky enough. Mum and Dad lived on on the edge of an incredible golf course, and a place called Blaise Castle, which was huge, and yet still only about 4 miles from the centre of Bristol. So right from a kid, I was sort of playing out in the woods. These days you could do things quite safely with the pig.
Yes, yeah.
Or at least if they did, you didn't whatever happened. So yeah, I mean, right from a horrible little kid, I was sort of into wildlife, crawling around in the mud, building dens, doing everything that nowadays a lot of kids don't get the opportunity to do, sadly, because
very true.
they either live in areas where it's just impossible, or everyone's so worried that there might be something happening out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really difficult for people to engage now, particularly youngsters. And the more we can throw these tablets away and sort of get out and enjoy the environment. And I think just taking a leap forward, I think what I've noticed, of course, is that over the last 2 years since the pandemic and during the pandemic, it really did engage a lot more people. And hopefully now, with the event that's coming on in a couple of weeks' time, we can start really homing on a lot of new people and getting them engaged in wildlife. And I don't mean that just locally, because I started an event called Global Birding 2 years ago. And just recently we had people from 201 countries taking part.
That's right, yeah.
We even had a team in Ukraine, which is fantastic, in the middle of the horrendous war.
Wow.
And we saw, I think, 7,700 plus different species, almost 2/3 or more of the world's population in a single day.
Which has to be a world record.
It is, absolutely. And watched by 52,000 people.
Wow.
So that's the sort of thing, how it is growing. But I mean, for me, growing up, if you like, was that opportunity to
a natural immersion.
Exactly. And I used to collect bird eggs and things that.
Well, my father did.
As well did. Exactly. So I mean, it's the sort of thing. There was no. There was only about one book. The I Spy I. Of birds and that sort of stuff. So you literally just went out and found nature yourself and discovered it.
And were there any kind of prominent moments that you'd say that kind of triggered or sparked your interest, that you saw anything in particular, or do you think it was just looking back a general?
Possibly. I mean, again, I was looking for bird nests and that sort of thing, and and I think probably the most extraordinary thing I found, and I was probably only about 10. Was literally, again, 4 miles from the centre of Bristol. Would this ever happen now? No. I found a nightjar's nest.
Wow.
And I mean, it was just, there, and I couldn't believe it. This most incredibly cryptic bird.
It's better than finding gold, isn't it?
Absolutely. It would be now. That's
wildlife gold. Yeah.
So I moved on from there, and fortunately, I mean, what was good, there was a local wildlife park, and this was something very much in the sort of 60s that people were setting up. And it was a British wildlife, so I was able to engage and as a volunteer down there. And that really kick-started me. And I remember one of the most exciting things was actually meeting and being filmed with Johnny Morris. In fact, doesn't mean anything to your age, but a lot of people know Johnny Morris. Animal Magic. It was the most, one of the early black and white BBC nature programs.
A lot of people watching this will know. Tim,
well, they would indeed, yeah. And I was on there because I'd reared 3 badger cubs, for the park, and they were running around and at home in the garden. So that was my first TV appearance.
Yeah, fantastic.
This might be the last.
How old were you then?
Oh, 10.
10.
No, sorry, no. At that stage, no, I was. I suppose I was 16, 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so,
brilliant. So that was where it all came from, how it all formed. But then obviously you went into conservation as a job. Was that straight after school, or?
Yeah, but well, after college, I did A levels, you know, the usual stuff, zoology and botany and that sort of stuff. But I didn't. I suppose I was so engaged with this wildlife park and just so enamoured by the whole, you know, touching of animals and being close to animals. That university just seemed, you know, why? You know, it wasn't for me particularly. And both my brother and I, neither of us went to university. We've gone down our different routes and things. And I think, you know, if you're passionate about something enough, you'll find, you know, the right direction.
Absolutely.
And what the interesting, you say conservation. I worked at this little wildlife park more as a volunteer, but I think I got £5 a week, something like that. You know. But then a job came up because we lived relatively close in Bristol, northern Bristol, to Slimbridge, which people will have heard of.
I have been once.
Wildflower and Wetlands Trust.
Yeah.
And a wonderful chap called Sir Peter, or as he was in those days, Peter Scott.
Yes.
Later to become Sir Peter. And I got to know people working there. I desperately wanted to work. I've always loved ducks and geese and swans, that sort of stuff. And but there just wasn't a job available at the time.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine was working at Woburn Abbey on the deer herds there. So I went up to Woburn and worked in for about 18 months, waiting for a job to come up. And then a job suddenly came up, and I ended up in this general area in Peakirk, just outside Peterborough, which is one of the satellite branches. And that's really where my sort of, you know, if you like, the proper career in conservation started.
Which sadly is now closed, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is.
Well,
I mean, I went past it just recently, and the building's still there, all empty after all these years. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe those days are over. But I mean, what a wonderful educational facility for schools from Peterborough.
I remember going as a child.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. I used to take groups around.
Yeah.
So from there, I obviously, you know, they felt I had more than just sitting there painting fences, which I was doing for the first 3 months. I think it was a test. And then they suddenly said, right, we want you down at Slimbridge. We're going to create a new job as deputy curator of Slimbridge. And I was relatively young. And of course went there with 2 assistant curators who obviously never thought there would be a deputy curator. So it was quite an interesting challenge to sort of break through step up through there. But it was a great opportunity because I mean that really did launch my career in terms of working conservation. You know, conservation, you know, people see Slimbridge in different lights, you know, but you know, I've always had the bigger picture of seeing how, I mean, in a way, I suppose, what I've done here when I applied for this job in 1975 was the first type of real rewilding. Yeah. Because, absolutely. I mean, nothing had been done on the scale that we've done, and that's really, again, another stage from Slimbridge coming to here.
Yeah, yeah. So you went from Peakirk, was it then the next job was straight from Peakirk to here?
Well, to Slimbridge.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, to Slimbridge.
Yes, and then
from here and I started here in April 1975. Wow, yeah. And that was an incredible day because the dam was still being built at the far end. And it was still then Empingham Reservoir again for people who can remember those early days. And then later, obviously, it was renamed Rutland Water. But it was great because because I was actually in position right from day one. You know, I mean, I didn't see water on the nature reserve for nearly 3 years. Wow. And yet it gave me a chance to do all the landscaping, the planting, designing of the lagoons. I planted, I think, about 100,000 trees over the course of a couple of years. Yeah. I dug out, this area of water behind us was part of a medieval fish pond. That part of it was actually full of reeds. Wow. And all the reed beds that we see now around the reserves on the lagoons comes from a truck that I hired, or at least a tractor and trailer, and we dug out a load of rhizomes, put them down on the ridge and furrow, obviously in the furrow, kept them wet, and this was in 1976, the driest summer for donkey's years. And so that 14 hectares of reed now stems from me literally taking it from there over to there, literally.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And in fact, interestingly, so some of that reed then was dug up from us a few years ago and taken to Regent's Park. So we've got some royal reed.
Royal reed, yeah. Transportation of royal reed,
exactly,
brilliant. Yeah. And so the history behind Rutland Water is an interesting one because, of course, it is the largest man-made inland lake in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was actually... part of it was to flood the old village, wasn't it?
Yeah, indeed, yeah. I mean, luckily, considering I think they actually purchased about 4,500 acres for the whole site. So obviously you've got the peripheral zone around it, but the actual flooded area is about 3,500 acres. And I mean, it still had the impact on a number of people, but you know, considering how well built up this country is, there was only about 14 homes actually affected.
Really?
But of course it transformed people's lives. You know, the farming communities had to change, and that was quite a battle in those early days, because of course, you know, I was seen as the the bad guy coming in, you know,
the instigator
for birds, you know, and all that sort of bloody wildlife, and which is,
and of course in the 70s conservation wasn't at everybody's forefront, was it?
I mean, you would have laughed. I mean, the local Finch's pub, it's got quite a lot of history behind that, because anyway, we'll come to that in a minute maybe. And I went up there, and in those days it was just a single bar, and dear old wonderful Doug Clements, who was a local landowner as well, didn't think too much to me. And so he would go down, and you had to go down to the cellar, and he would go down to the cellar, and I would get a pint, and he'd come up, you know, up the steps like this, and then here's your beer. On the most of it then was spread all over. But we became good friends in the end, and you know, and as I had now over the years with all the local farming community, and you know, basically, you know, what a lot of, I think, conservation's got to be really careful that they don't necessarily know it all. You've got to work with the communities. And I think that's so critical. That
and it's not that conservation is a lot of guesswork, but it's a lot of planning. You know, it's a lot of. Sometimes it has to be pioneering, doesn't it, in order for you to have those successes.
Totally.
So, obviously, you then became the reserve manager here for 40 years, was it?
Yes, just over 20 years.
20, wasn't it, Tim?
Yeah. Well, if only. But yeah, so I mean, and that was an incredible.
2019, was it?
So it was a great period of my life, obviously. Well, it's a major part of my life, and I was very lucky to have this fantastic home here, which obviously, as you can see, overlooks the water.
Yes,
you know, it's a great location. But it was, I mean, what's I've really enjoyed about it is the fact that, you know, basically Rutland Water is an industrial site.
Yeah.
Okay, look at it like that. You know, what's it do? It's providing water. But you can transform these sites, you know, with careful planning, with good landscaping. An incredible lady called Dame Sylvia Crowe, who's now sadly not with us, but I mean, she was very much part of that whole landscaping picture. Wow. And so when they flooded it, you know, it did actually look, the day it reached hot water line in about 1979, it looked like it had been there forever, because you know, there weren't trees sticking out of the water. They carefully, you know, gone round measuring whether all the top water lines were going to be removed, anything, fences, hedges, stone walls, trees and stuff. So it flooded, well, it's been here forever, you know. And of course then we were doing lots of stuff out the western end, which everyone will know is the main bird area.
That's right.
And then I think what was probably the most successful thing, and I think Angley Water should get a lot of credit for this, they set up what they call a reservoir users panel. Now, when you think there's fishermen, there's sailors, there's walkers, there's windsurfers, there's everything, cyclists, and everyone's got, you know, they want their slice of the cake.
That's right.
So
it's
if you
about
can find a way,
25 miles around it, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a brilliant place. Rutland actually is now apparently the fourth or third, I think, the healthiest county to live in Britain, because of all these activities.
Yeah.
But all those activities could actually have a damaging impact on everyone's interest. You know,
that's right.
You don't want fly fishermen casting in front of a sailing boat. You know, we don't want sailing boats going off into the nature reserve, disturbing, you know, the birds. So we had to, and it was brilliant, because everyone, you know, we found our own pitches, we found our own slice of the cake, and it's worked. And that therefore was used all over the world, and we still, I believe, you know, potential reservoir builders and that sort of coming to say, but how the heck do you do this? You know, how can you have an international, you know, fly fishing championships here? How can you have your international sailors coming? How come this reserve and the reservoir is a special protection area? You know, why is it so critically important for wildlife with all this disturbance? And that's really, I think, one of the great stories behind this reservoir. Yeah,
and it's not the only one, because you were, I know not solely, but played a huge part in the reintroduction of the Ospreys here, obviously, which were, and when they finally bred, it was the first time in 150 years, wasn't it, that they'd bred inside of England?
Absolutely. I think I could actually claim I was responsible for it totally, because
there you go.
If you look behind over here, there are some trees that are now sort of rotting away, but in 1996, 2 birds over summered here. And of course, at the moment, I think, wow, you know, are they going to come back next year? And I'd already been doing stupid things like putting cardboard cutouts of ospreys in trees, building nests and
I can see you clambering up a tree.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we
drilling your teeth.
Yeah, we did everything to try to encourage them. It's just such an iconic bird.
Yeah.
And so I then contacted Roy Dennis, who's the global expert, and Roy and I put the project together. We went across to Minnesota to look at the rehacking project they were doing, the only one at the time anywhere in the world of introducing ospreys back into a wild situation. And so it all started. We had the first birds coming over in the sort of in 1997, where the first birds came over, and by 2001 I walked up through that wood behind us and found the first nest in Britain for 150 years.
Wow. Well, that is an accolade.
Yeah. And now
now how many pairs are there?
There's 11 pairs breeding this year in this general area.
Brilliant.
And of course, a lot of our birds are young chicks. I think we produce well over 200 chicks now.
Wow.
And they are all over Britain, slowly building up, territories. And it's going to be really exciting. I think the future's good.
Brilliant.
And you need iconic species like that. I mean, there's nothing better than, as we get 30,000 people over the course of the summer coming down and watching an osprey diving into the water, coming out and then sort of shaking itself, and you see that water dispersing, and it's helped businesses, it's helped the hotels, and the great thing at Horn Mill just nearby, we built a hide at ground level. Brilliant. So that the Horn Mill trout hatchery that you would have thought, do we not ospreys?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. They're full every day from almost from March to the end of August, with people coming in, photographers to see them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are, for those watching this that aren't aware of an osprey, I mean, they're obviously a global bird. They're in a lot of other countries, aren't they? Not just the UK, but they are a bit like the gannet of the bird of the bird of prey world, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
They will dive into the water, catch a fish, and I mean, I remember seeing it on probably in Attenborough series when I was a boy, thinking, how the hell does this majestic, giant bird get out of the water with all of that weight on it in terms of the water and the fish in its claws? How does it get airborne again? Phenomenal.
It is really incredible. And sometimes they don't, because they have to let go because the fish they've caught is actually far too big. But they are, and of course they move the fish into a position where aerodynamically it's actually perfect to fly off.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I remember the first time I ever saw an osprey, thank you really, was 2016, the first bird fair I was exhibiting at, and I remember driving home back to Bourne, and I was just going over the sort of the roads up and down, and over the crest of this hill came this osprey, and it wasn't too high off the road, probably only about 30 or 40 foot. And I was driving towards it, and it had obviously been to the trout farm over at Ryle.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was coming towards me, so this menacing glare like that, claws like that, and this massive, great big 3 or 4 pound trout in its claws, and I thought, whoa, that's an osprey.
Well, lucky you.
And
that site's becoming more and more common. Thanks to
thanks to you, really.
Well,
but and the ongoing efforts, obviously.
Yes, exactly,
but no, so thank you very much.
Oh,
that was my first introduction to an osprey. So that's wonderful, and obviously, I know we're kind of jumping about a little bit in terms of time, but then you formed the bird fair, which was back in, well, it was
1989.
Yeah, I was going to say 8, but so that was, but it was known as a game fair back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, not quite. I mean, basically what happened was, and I mentioned the Finch's Arms just a little while ago. I went in about, I suppose it'd be 1997-ish. 1987. I went to the game fair, which is held locally, and I went from marquee to marquee to marquee, and everything seemed quite similar, but very much for a different sort of crowd.
That's right.
And I thought, well, why isn't there anything, for the bird watching market? Because I'm quite interested in all aspects. There's a bit of entrepreneurial side of me as well as the sort of conservation side. And so, I could see an opportunity to do something, for me, for you, for people who, want to try out the latest binoculars, who want to, look for a telescope.
Because the birding market, if you take all the different, types of animals we have, butterflies, dragonflies,
yeah,
bees,
absolutely.
birds are the main. I mean, for me, it's certainly where my interest
Yeah.
in wildlife started as a child. You go
Yeah.
bird watching,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah.
start off with,
Yeah.
because
Well, I
they're
always say-
accessible,
Exactly, and they're flagship. I mean, I saw you look up at something fly over
there's
just
a
then.
little egret.
Yeah, well, there you go, a little egret over the garden. How about that? Well,
Nice garden
yeah,
tick. Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, and then you think, well, where's that little egret live? Well, it lives in the water. What lives in the water? I wonder what it's feeding on. Suddenly, you think, oh, they're fish. How many species of fish are there in Britain?
That's right.
What
Yeah.
are the fish eating? They're eating insects. How many insects? And the whole thing sort of, you need that sort of flagship species to sort of kickstart a lot of people.
Yeah.
Anyway, digressing a little bit. Yeah. So. So I went to the game fair and I was thinking, right, the RSPB at that time probably had, I don't know, maybe 500,000 members. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Wildlife Trust probably 300,000.
Yeah.
So, and there were people doing odd sort of shows, but just single days at a show, setting up the binoculars on the nature reserve. So I think I contacted a good friend of mine, Martin Davies, who was then the RSPB regional officer for this area.
Yeah.
And together we went up to Finches, we scratched our heads, we thought, how on earth could we do this? I sort of put this idea to him and introduced this new word called bird fair, and which I had to check. No, it hadn't been used, new to science.
That's right. Yeah.
And so together we then contacted Bruce Hanson from In Focus, the binocular people, who then at the time was the biggest sort of company, and he said, look, fantastic, why don't we do it? I've got all the contacts and I can get hold of, the Zeisses, the Swarovskis, the Leicas and stuff. And that's how it really stemmed. And then it slowly grew and grew and grew to become the world's largest wildlife event, and probably definitely the largest wildlife ecotourism event in the world as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. And obviously, I think it'd be good to kind of come on to the bird fair now, and we'll talk a little bit more about the up and coming event shortly. But I think the background behind it is, again, your passion was to try and help habitats globally, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The conservation ethos was to raise money and raise awareness for projects all around the world.
Exactly,
so, and because of that, you've raised now over £40 million, haven't you, for
I mean
different projects.
That's when you think, you can't think 40 million. Where is it? It's not in my
where's
pocket.
it gone?
Where's it gone?
My bank doesn't look like it.
It certainly doesn't. But I mean, the other 2 points, actually, very quickly, is to say that I wanted 3 things. I wanted to be a meeting place for like-minded people. I wanted people to make new friends. I wanted people to meet their old friends. I've just been on a Twitch somewhere. I haven't seen Fred for 18 months, and God, do you remember seeing that? Red Frank Bluetail, whatever it might be. Yeah. And then I wanted to be I wanted genuinely a place where businesses could come and grow. Yeah. And that has been. I mean, I can't even imagine what that's been worth globally. It must be probably hundreds of millions of pounds.
I'm sure.
Of people that launched businesses at the fair and then moved on.
Well, I mean, I interrupt you briefly. I ought to probably thank you, because if it wasn't for you, you wouldn't have given me the platform to have the little wildlife garden stand, to then sort of present, what I do as a job to thousands of like-minded people, because I always struggled when I went from the pure landscaping side, which I always felt was a little bit mundane. That's not disrespecting any landscaping out there, but putting up fences, laying turf and laying slabs, there's not much reward from that. And obviously, having always had an interest in wildlife since a similar age to you, no doubt, there was a bit more of a wanting to do more things for wildlife. And of course, having that platform of the bird fair, it was incredible. I remember the first year there was sort of 30 or 40 people from all over the country into Scotland and Wales that said, oh yeah, great, well I'd like a wildlife pond, or I'd like a wildflower meadow. And I just thought, this is it, nail on the head,
Brilliant.
So thank you. I mean, I'll work out the commission for the last few years.
Well, absolutely. And now you can tell us how much your business has raised, and I can multiply that by about 400 exhibitors.
There you go. Yeah. So, but it's a very valid point, and it's given me a platform for sure, and a lot of other people where you wouldn't, because there is nothing like it.
Exactly. And that's what we've tried to achieve, and we'll continue to achieve with this new global bird fair. But I mean, I think the other thing you say, going back to the sort of financial side in terms of money raised, I've always believed that with all the conservation work that's going on in Britain, if we can't afford to do the work we're doing using our own members from different societies, then we might as well pack up and go home. Whereas that 40 million has had an extraordinary impact all over the world. I mean, far more than you could, again, you or I could ever imagine the impact it's had on people, on conservation, on habitats, on saving species. It's something I never really sort of think about, because you just get on with the next event or whatever.
That's right.
And then you know if you think, I mean, one of the great things that I really got passionate about and have with the seabirds, although where are we? Couldn't be further from the sea, living in the middle of Rutland. But in the year 2000, BirdLife, actually what happened, BirdLife would come to us. We've always raised money for BirdLife.
Yeah, so I should say that BirdLife International is who the money is sort of going through, isn't it? And
they would submit 2 or 3 different projects each year, and we'd go, love that one. And that's the one we'd choose. It was our choice, Martin and I's choice, and Bruce's as well. And so with a bit of pressure, I put on the idea of the this seabird thing. This was well, what's wrong with seabirds? Well, they're all being caught on hooks. They're all declining. All 18 species of albatrosses and petrels were in massive decline because they were being caught on these long line fishing vessels. I couldn't believe it. I suddenly learnt that some of these lines are over 100 kilometres long.
Wow.
100 kilometres of hook every few. And of course, when they're discharged from the boat, each with a piece of crab or whatever bit of fish on them, of course the gannets and albatrosses would dive down and take them, and so this is really the main crux of why they were disappearing. So but no one would provide any money to set up a scheme to see how they could do it. And we just said, this is obvious, let's do it. And so getting birds off the hook started in this county here in Rutland, and is globally successful. And that's that's one of many examples, and I think that's the one I feel sort of really proud of, that now albatrosses are soaring again.
Yeah, brilliant.
Soaring again.
There you go. And so what are some of your favourite projects, and have you been back to see any the results of any of the efforts?
I mean, to be fair, we've been pretty careful about going back, because again, unless we've got a good reason to go back, I don't want to just swan around, and no doubt someone will say I do swan around, but we seriously, we have been really careful, because unless we can contribute something by going back, then we won't. And that's why our murals that we've painted at the fair, and we'll be painting for the Global Bird Fair as well, have been so popular, because those murals have depicted the project in some form or fashion. And there's been the odd occasion where we have gone back, we've taken them and we've seen them put up and opened them and pulled little flags and that sort of stuff. So but generally speaking, no, I mean we but because we've
no doubt heard about the results.
Oh, totally. I mean, that part of the deal with BirdLife is that they have to do a comprehensive report, because we want to demonstrate to the public that their money, isn't being filtered away somewhere. It is actually going, and you can see A, B, and C, and that's spent on that, that's spent on that, and so on. So I mean, it's totally squeaky clean, as it should be, of course. And the last thing in the world I want to do is sort of money being wasted. Yeah,
of course. And one thing I probably ought to mention is it's a bit of a contentious issue. It's one that I discussed with your good friend, our good mutual friend Stephen Moss, recently when I interviewed him, is the environmental impact that one or two people raise, I'm no doubt with yourselves annually, about people coming from all over the world to exhibit. But I mean, before you say anything, I think I probably ought to give my 10 pence worth and say that I think when you look at the successes that you've had, when you look at the impact that it has on the local economy, as much as anything, take the wildlife out of it for a second, the people that it employs, to have ecotourism, the money that it may take into, certain areas of the world which otherwise wouldn't be there. I think it is obviously with climate change, and people getting on jets and planes and all the rest of it. It's people have their views, and that's fine. And I'm not saying people shouldn't have them. But what would your take on that be? I think I know what you're going to say, but
I think you just said it for me. To be fair,
okay, good.
I mean, no, seriously. I mean, where do you start? I mean, obviously there's a lot of wasted travel. I'm sure. I mean, and people get on a plane to go to a meeting. And I think things like the Zoom business has actually probably changed that a little bit. I imagine that has cut down some travel.
For sure.
People want to go out and enjoy a new country, experience a new country. That's their choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, my choice is to support through travel sustainable tourism, and we are very, very careful about the companies we have going there. We know that it's had a massive impact on habitats, as you've mentioned already. It's saved loads of species, you know, and of course, I mean, we can actually just look back over the last 3 years and see how that travel has had a big impact. The lack of travel, I should say, through the pandemic has had a big impact. You know, there are lodges closing, people are losing their jobs. They're now cutting down more forests, putting more cattle in, because that's the only way they've got to live. You know, it's all well and good these people knocking us, and because you know they're living in a nice, comfortable home in Britain. You know, they whatever they do, jobs or not on jobs, whatever. You know, these are people who are living from day to day by, you know, being a taxi driver, taking them into, you know, picking the clients up from the airport, taking them to the lodge is being cleaned by, you know, your local people from the village, you know, the local guide, and the local guides are suddenly have got a better standard of living, because, you know, before, you know, stealing logs and illegally out of forests, or, you know, shooting game for game meat in Africa, wherever it might be, you know, that's still happening, of course it is, but it's happening on a lesser scale. And we can identify, and that, I mean, one of the things, of course, these companies do that go to these countries, you know, they're obviously looking at the best habitats, you know, so those habitats hopefully will be safeguarded. So we are doing quite a lot at the fair this year. We're talking about this very openly. We want people to come in. We're doing a very good project with Paul Jepson and Kieran Lawrence, who will talk about positive carbon birding and low carbon birding. We've got Hannah Bourne-Taylor and Charlie Bingham, who will be on that group as well, discussing that, chaired by Kerry Levy. So we want people to come. We want people to listen.
And I think you know, there's no point ignoring the topic, is there? Because it's something that comes up all the time. And I've heard people reference it, and you know, part of my argument would be is that, well, by simply existing, you know, I mean, it's okay to have a go at one group of people or one person who's travelling more than someone else, but by simply existing, we are using resources. You know, the most selfless thing you could probably do is to not have children. I've got children, you've had children, we're all guilty of it, a lot of us, not everybody, but you know, it's a bit late now, I can't really tell them I don't want to anymore. They've got to go because they're using resources, but you know, population is obviously something that Sir David Attenborough talks about a lot, you know, is population control and birth control and things. So I know I don't want to digress too much down that route, but I think there's more pressing issues is what I would say.
I mean, look how your life has changed. I mean, you know, you would probably, if it hadn't have been for, you know, your love of wildlife, you'd probably still be laying slabs over grassland, you know, covering up people's gardens in shingle and what have you. Now you're actually, you know, creating habitat that is good for wildlife and insects. So, you know, you're preserving stuff. Now, you know, if you hadn't have got that sort of inspiration of being, you know, loving wildlife and looking at the opportunities, you're doing so much yourself, you know, for the environment. And
it's
don't forget that. You know, I mean,
you know, it's easy to run around, isn't it, and just think, oh well, what am I doing? Is it worth it? But you know, the amount of people that come, and that's why I wanted with the YouTube channel to spread, like you, to spread the message globally. And since I've done some of the how to make a wildlife pond videos and everything, and I asked people to email in. If they'd made a pond or a barrel pond or something like that for wildlife, back off the back of the videos. And you know, we've had over 150 emails from all around the world now.
That's phenomenal.
So it's like you, I think that for me it's a passion to try and spread the message globally. You know, there's no point saying, oh well, everybody who's privileged enough to live in the UK, you know, a wealthy country and can afford to spend thousands of pounds on the garden, this is for you. You know, there are things that everybody can do globally in their own little patch, even if they only have a balcony. You know, they can plant pots for pollinators and everything else, and it does make a difference.
It's interesting because at our global birding event back in May, we had a team called the Balcony Birders.
Oh, brilliant!
Seriously, they were all, and we had, I can't remember how many countries involved, but they were talking through, you know, the eBird, because we do everything recording through eBird, and they were able to form a team. You know, I think there was one in Spain, there was one in, I can't remember where they were, but they were all over Europe and a bit further afield. And you know, there are people, because they live in a flat, you know, they can't get out, or maybe they have disabilities that you know, restrict their movements and things. So yeah, it's incredible what you can achieve, and even if you're just seeing a robin or a sparrow from your garden, you know, recording it. It's all part of, you know, us learning more about through, you know, citizen science work.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it'd be rude not to mention for a moment, I've noticed on one or two of your profile pictures you're sat with a rather famous man on a sofa, Mr. Sir David Attenborough. So what's your connection with him?
Well, first of all, I guess the connection actually goes back to my sadly dearly departed brother.
Yes.
Because Michael Appleton used to work for the BBC for many years, and he came up with an idea called the Old Grey Whistle Test, and he was always been heavily into music and stuff. So he then went to the head of BBC Two, who was Sir David, well, not David Attenborough, of course, in those days. And David sort of said, wow, you know, this is fantastic. Yeah. And I mean, Mike just went from strength to strength. He did so much for music all over Britain and further afield. He would travel all over, you know, getting people to pray. He brought Springsteen. I mean, nobody heard of Springsteen, you know, for example, until he brought them across to the UK, having seen him, you know, performing in the States. He then went on actually to then do the television production for the whole of Live Aid, and got a BAFTA for that.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but whenever I see David now, of course, the first thing he says, "Oh, and how's Mike?" You know, and he probably hasn't seen him for 30 years or more. And that's the sort of man he is. He's an extraordinarily gentle, loving man. And, you know, I think everybody that meets him, you know, I picked, in fact, I always forget this, he kindly offered and agreed to do free of charge the over narration of our Osprey video. The Osprey, the video and the CD. And so we had a celebration at and the launch of it at the what's the name, WWT in London.
Oh yeah.
And
Wildflowers
Wetlands Trust at
Barnes.
Barnelm.
Yes.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Which actually I was headhunted for, and I turned them down.
You say that. I was. That's where I had the pleasure of interviewing him.
Oh right, No, I turned that project down.
Oh really?
To stay here, basically. No, I spent about 6 months, you know, negotiating with the WWT.
Really, yeah.
You know, but anyway, that's another story. And anyway, David said, "Look, can you pick me up from the house?" And I said, "Yes, fine." And I was a few minutes late because of the traffic, and there he was in his usual sort of whites and stuff, you know, on the ground picking weeds out of the gravel in outside his house. So he was just he is such a fantastic man, and so he came to Bird Fair lots of times, and you know, he's done various things for us. So he's a great man, and sorely missed when he eventually does. You know, go to another.
Not even think about it.
Planet,
sure.
But
you can't replace that man.
No, exactly. And I mean,
not that anybody should try, but
no,
incredible. And it's certainly due to him that I'm sure, you know, the amount of series that I used to watch on a Sunday evening, you know, which got me hooked, and I think it's what a remarkable story, and a story in its own right.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, one that we could never do justice, I'm sure.
No, exactly.
So, if we come on to a moment then onto your achievements, shall we say. So you're known as having an MBE, Tim, and I know you're quite a modest man, but why don't you do a little shameless here we go, look. This I'll put a picture in for everybody, obviously. Now why don't you explain to me a little bit about how you received this award?
Okay, well, all I can say is that I played a small part in this, because I mean, if you think of the number of people that I mean, it was awarded for my services to conservation, basically, and which is
so for anybody out there doubting your conservation efforts over the last 40 years, well, more than that.
Look at the grey hair and the bald patches and the tired eyes. No, I mean, it's a wonderful thing to have. I don't make too much of it because there'll always be people.
Well, you're not the type, are you?
Well, whatever. But it is an honour. But I mean, I received this from Prince Charles on behalf of the people here in Rutland and the people, you know, all over the world that have supported me and helped me. So yeah, it's a fabulous thing, and I love it. And sadly, you don't really ever get the opportunity to wear it. But although it did come out, the mini version came out for my daughter's wedding several years ago. So so it's lovely, and it's a treasure thing to have.
Well, hopefully, I'm sure you will you'll be reminded of your efforts perhaps when you do see it.
Yeah, exactly.
You
yeah,
know,
so
it's
when
a
the
wonderful
knighthood comes along, you'll be, oh no, damn.
Well, who knows?
No, but seriously, no, it's fantastic, and
No,
but,
well done, and
yeah.
I think anyone watching this, I'm sure, will agree that it's well deserved. You know, there's not many people can say they've spent their entire life trying to promote global conservation, and I applaud you greatly.
Well,
so,
thank you very much. But
well,
as I say, massive team behind me always.
Yeah, of course. No, absolutely.
Although not the Global Bird Fair, just the two of us.
Well, speaking of teams, I'm glad you came onto that. Now, behind every good man stands a good woman. Penny, obviously, is your partner in crime, and has been for some time. Yes, absolutely, yeah. And it's due to both of you that we now have the Global Bird Fair, which I'd like to come on to now, which is obviously kicking off in
2 weeks.
How many hours?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks and a few
Not
days.
long at all. So how do you manage it? Because I know you literally, when one event closes, you start planning for the next year, don't you?
Yeah.
It's not like you just think, I'll just wait till Christmas
Yeah,
now, you know,
exactly.
and I'll then crack on, you know, and I'll get on with it. We'll sort it, you know. It's a full-time job for both of you, isn't it?
Yeah,
and Penny, obviously, I think probably deserves a bit of recognition, doesn't she?
A massive amount of credit. But I think the other thing to remember is that, of course, normally, as you quite rightly say, you finish one in sort of August, as it was in those days, and you're basically planning the next one. Well, in November last year, the local wildlife trust decided to pull the fair, and they decided, you know, they didn't want to do it anymore. So, and of course by then I retired from doing anything to do with the bird fair, and was doing global birding as an event, you know, which was twice a year, which was probably almost enough to do, you know, because I love
is already,
doing,
as you've already said, becoming a great success.
Oh yeah, it's almost too successful. If you can imagine.
You're going to have to stop at some point, Tim.
So, and then, you know, slowly as we got towards Christmas, you know, I was getting messages, you know, so what you doing, Tim? You know, are you going to do anything about another fair? You must be joking. I've got enough to do, thank you very much. Yeah. And the pressure built up and built up and built up. So early January, Penny and I sat down and said, look, you know, do you think we can do this? And we both said, no, no. But of course, you know, they're stupid enough to accept the challenge, and it is a challenge, a massive challenge for two people, literally to do the whole thing. We had to set up a business, you know, a new limited company. We had to do all the sort of you know, legal side of everything, the VAT registering, finding someone to help us with the bookkeeping. We've got a super Sarah who works locally anyway, you know, on the reserve, so she's brilliant. She does all that for us. And basically, and you met Rod today, who's now collating all our, but they're all volunteers. They're all helping us, you know, as we are at the moment. So we then sort of thought, well, the best thing to do, we'll get the old program out, you know, look at all the people, contacted them, because obviously we didn't have any databases to work on, contacted them, and within about probably 48 hours, I think we'd had over 200 people say, yes please, where's it going to be, what's happening?
I think I was included in that.
Well, you were indeed, and we didn't know where was it going to happen. So we, oh my God,
what are we going to do with it now?
People do actually want to come to it. So we shopped around, we did look at a couple of sites around the rest of the reservoir. We thought it'd be lovely, because immediately my impact, oh God, you know, everyone's so used to coming to a nature reserve, they're used to seeing birds everywhere and that sort of stuff. Having said that, then we thought actually they're not used to seeing birds, because most of them are either in marquees or in lectures or
I was going to say, every time I've come, I spent in a marquee.
Exactly, exactly, the whole time. So we then looked at the local showground and went to see them. And it sort of fell into place, and you know, contacted all the original contractors. Yes, please, want to be involved. Brilliant, thank you very much. You know, because it was big business, and of course the hotels, bed and breakfast, everybody just went bonkers. So they said, wow, you know, this is filling a massive, and we now know that it brings in well over £1 million into the local economy. Wow. So you know, we're very good friends with everybody. Nobody seems to offer us free meals. I must work on that. Yeah, but seriously, it's
I would.
yeah, exactly. I'll have a free flower then from you. You can pick one these daisies and then give you one. No, but seriously, it has been a massive challenge, and it's, you know, we have spent this hours, you know, tired and exhausted, you know, doing. And Penny, I mean, she's, you know, younger than me, so she has a you know, a lot more energy. But I mean, she does do an incredible job, and very proud of her, and you know what she's done and what she's doing for everybody. Because her attention to detail is something that I'm a little bit sort of looser at. You know, of course it'll happen. You know, there's always tomorrow. You know, I think there's a bit of
there's a few bells ringing there with me. I'm thinking, there's Nikki doing all the kind of background work to keep me in place and to get me from one place to the next, and all the logistics, and me going, I've just seen this wood white. I'm just going to do a quick piece. You haven't got bloody time. Get to the next job. You know, it's hard, isn't it? Being a meanderer.
And for a lot of people from abroad, and even locally, you know, it's their first time they've been, and you know, well, what's it? Are you in a hall? No, we're in a marquee. Well, how big's the marquee? How high are the apexes? How high are the walls? You know, what do we, you know, stand on? What do we do? And of course, we've had to basically sort of babysit people through so much stuff. And then of course, you know, even the regulars come back. Oh, do you know, Tim? Sorry, forgot to order the trellis, or I forgot to order the power. Oh, can we have one more chair? And you're sort of, you know, 250 people, exhibitors, all with their different requests.
Well, I hope I've not been too difficult. I think I sent you one list, and that was it.
Well, absolutely, you're doing all right so far.
Mind you, what I don't have, I can either make or bring.
Exactly. But no, I mean, I think what I would like to say, though, generally to the public, you know, who are hopefully going to see this, thank you for your support. Thank you for your support. Seriously, without your support, you know, this would not happen, and it gives us the motivation to keep going. So thank you, and thank you. I'll put that there now. But anyway, seriously, on behalf of Penny and I, you know, to all exhibitors, to all the volunteers, who we have over 100 volunteers taking part, plus the contractors. But above all, to the general public. If we don't have the general public, we don't have an event.
It's not going to happen, is it? No. So what can people expect from the Global Bird Fair for people that are viewing this for the first time? You know, what have you got to offer?
Well, it's a 3-day event. So the Friday tends to be the sort of...
That's Friday the 15th
Friday
of July,
the 15th,
isn't it? Obviously, again, I'll put in links underneath.
Exactly,
people can go through Global... I won't say birding, which I did in the
previous
there. Globalbirdfair.org. I'll put a link in below, and they can book tickets online there, can't they?
They can do everything online, and they can attend the events. All the events, apart from this one evening, are free. So you're £12.50. £12.50. God, that's equivalent about, you know, a couple of pints.
Less than a packet of fags, isn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Neither do I, but
no, I'm guessing. I think really that.
I had no
they
idea.
Won't do that when I used to buy 5, whatever they were.
Certainly less than a litre of fuel these days, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's true. So basically, you know, we want, you know, we're not greedy. We want people to come and enjoy things, and you know, basically, you know, learn about nature, learn about things. So on the Friday we've got lots of different activities. We've got you know, some fun things. We've got, you know, Nigel Marvin coming in talking. We've got different celebrities in the world, but you've got to go to the website to look at it. So well, I won't tempt you with the rest of them, but
no, brilliant.
So
you've got lots of talks, lots of events to go
lots
to.
Of events, lectures,
great food, which is always a big draw for me.
The food is amazing.
I do love my food.
I mean, I say earlier on that, you know, the vegan food through to, you know, the carnivores.
Brilliant.
So everything is catered for, we hope.
And obviously the Wildflowers Garden standard. Robin Markey.
No. Well, they've told me they might be coming, but you know, we're waiting. Have they paid? Oh yes, no, they have paid.
We did. Thank you. No, which obviously, you know, jokes to one side, I will be selling the wildflowers again.
Yeah,
which would be great for anybody wanting to attract some, well, wonderful little pollinators, like with what you've done on here, which we'll come on to briefly in a moment. But I'll be selling those. I'll be making a little wildlife garden, obviously.
Fantastic.
Hopefully drawing in a few people to the area.
I think we all, you know, add to that, of course, is that, you know, the range of exhibitors is fantastic.
Absolutely,
you know, from outdoor clothing to, you know,
socks to binoculars.
Exactly, and gloves even, I think, as well. Through to, as you say, you know, the art marquee is just one of the most incredible things to go. Go in and meet the artist and see the mural.
It's a dangerous marquee, though, isn't it? For your wallet.
Exactly, and meet the mural. We call her Muriel actually, but meet the mural being painted because this year BirdLife International are celebrating 100 years,
Wow.
and they're going to launch the whole thing, and all they're going to be
Fantastic.
doing over the next few months at the fair. So that's going to be
Brilliant.
really special. And the mural will depict the whole 100 years of their
Cool.
of their work, and it's going to be then taken to the David Attenborough building for perpetuity and
brilliant.
hung there. So we're really
I
excited
wouldn't fancy
about that.
being challenged with coming up with that.
Well,
Physically,
yeah. Well, John Cox has got to do this. He's
Yeah.
a wonderful friend, a wonderful artist, and he's coming down a week on Sunday to paint the background,
Brilliant.
and then all the artists will contribute over the weekend. So you'll
Yeah.
be able to see artists actually painting, birds
Wonderful.
and different features there. So
Yeah.
really exciting, and yeah. So and then on Saturday and Sunday particularly, we're really homing in on kids.
Yeah.
Saturday we've got 4 major events for people under 30. In conversation with David Lindo. I know, yeah, hard luck, yeah. No, we're doing the under 60s shortly, so
I'll get into that, Tim.
and so yeah, basically that's going to be great because we're doing. We've got a rewilding group coming to talk about where they see Britain, in
That's
the
right,
next
yeah.
30 years. We've got, say, David Lindo talking to the likes of Kabir and Maya and
Yeah.
Selina and Indy.
Yeah.
They're all under sort of 25,
That's
and
right.
where they see nature.
The next generation, aren't they?
Totally. So
Conservationists, yeah.
and then the Zeiss are launching their Young Birders of the Year project, which is going to be a really exciting thing. So
Yeah.
there's loads of things happening, for young people there.
Wow.
And guided walks going out to. There's a fabulous allotment, wildlife allotment on the site. So we've got access to that all 3 days, but
Fantastic.
particularly Saturday and Sunday. The likes of Dominic Cousins will be leading with another Ashton, Gail Ashton.
Too many
at
of us
his-
these
yeah,
days, aren't
exactly.
No
And,
relation at
yeah,
all, by the way,
exactly. And then other people. Matthew Capper is doing stuff, and lots of people are doing something. Some really
Yeah.
exciting stuff there. Dan Rouse as well.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, really good stuff.
No, I can't wait. I am actually getting genuinely excited at the thought of it. And of course, my journey starts a week on Monday when I start to build the garden, which usually I'm one of the first people there, foolish enough to try and spend 4 days building the garden in a tent.
And can I say my journey starts the minute we finish this interview,
Absolutely.
because I'm off down to the site to mark out where tomorrow the first marquee is
Wow,
going up.
brilliant.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
God, progress. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
I can't wait.
Good.
Well, I hope everybody watching this will come. It's going to be a wonderful event, as always, and one that's full of just surprises, I think. And you never know who you're going to bump into, do you?
Exactly.
Very sad, obviously, this year we won't have the likes of Sir Ian Wallace or anybody like that. But
No,
it's a big dent in the birding world,
exactly.
isn't it? But a great place for people to reconnect. I can't
yeah.
wait to see some old faces that
Yeah.
otherwise you don't get to see all year, do you?
And what is lovely, I think, and you mentioned, the people like Dim. What you will meet is the future Dims. The future Wallaces, the future people that are, have contributed so much in their lifetime. Obviously now, their lives change. But down here are these youngsters coming through, and they've got the passion as well.
That's right.
And that's what we've got to really build on. And I'm totally surprised at the number of young people that have really expressed an interest in coming to the bird fair this year.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see some of those faces coming through the gates. It's brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully, by just having a little wildflower display, they'll be able to see all the insects even coming into a tent, which always amazes me.
Absolutely.
And with everything else that's going on.
Perfect.
So, briefly then, so I know you're a busy man, I'd like to talk for a moment just about your little patch, which is full of wildflowers, but there's a bit of a story behind these wildflowers, isn't there?
Well, yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, when my dear brother sadly died at the start of the pandemic, of course, we were unable, like everybody, to go, and even his wife couldn't even go and see him, as he was dying in hospital. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
And his daughter and what have you. So, so this is now called Mike's Meadow.
Brilliant.
So on the day, he was buried. We had all the family round, and I'd cultivated it ready, and we all planted seeds on that day. And so that's sort of 2 years later is what you see behind you. So
wonderful. And absolutely teeming with
insects. What you can't see behind you, there's a globe to show the sort of global side of our lives.
Yes,
Because Mike, as I mentioned earlier on, did the Live Aid stuff. And,
Yeah.
So both of us, I'm quite where I'm going to be buried. I'm looking for a patch at the moment, but I'm sure it won't be long at this rate.
Bottom of the lake.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, that's great. I mean, the flowers are here, and I'm really lucky because we can turn round.
Well, that's right, and you've
look
got,
through our binoculars, and wow! In fact, I can probably see now. Oh crikey! Probably about 400 grey lag geese, swans, egrets, herons, all sorts of wonderful things.
And from this, you've actually had 118 bird species this year.
This year alone,
just from the garden.
Yeah, it's the biggest list in Britain at the moment.
Wow!
And our record is 119, which was last year. So with 6 months to go, I think we're going to smash it.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
indeed.
So what would you say you've done in your garden apart from the flowers, or what are the key points? I mean, it's a little bit difficult to try and top that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, if you look at it, there's a mown lawn, which you don't mow that often.
Yeah, but that's great in itself. Is it's full of the clover, it's full of buttercups, and there's loads of insects. Self-heal I can see dotted around.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just teeming with bees as well. It's something that I touched on in a recent video actually, because I'd like to try and introduce the concept of a no-mow summer. Yeah. I know we've got no-mow May, but I think people should try.
I see Yolo Williams is doing a no-mow. And actually, one thing I would talk that Yolo reminds me is that a lot of the people who can't make it this year have offered to their services for our auction, and Yolo is going to lead a walk in Wales. Someone can bid for that.
Brilliant.
Mike Dilger from the One Show, he's offered a walk in around the Somerset Levels.
Brilliant.
And around Bristol. And in fact, Steve Moss, who will be at the fair, is offered a walk as well. So these are people genuinely are passionate about the fair, because it was so late them hearing about it, that they're offering their services to help raise money. So if you can't find the auction, have a look on the website. You can always send us a bid by post. And we make the draws at on the Sunday afternoon. So.
Brilliant.
And that has raised over 200,000 over the years.
Oh, fantastic! So, brilliant. So, if anybody's watching this, and I know your conservation efforts have been on a rather grand scale for the majority of your life and all around the world, obviously. But what would you say is something that people could do in their own garden if they're looking to help wildlife, for example? Yeah,
I mean, we all live in different environments. I mean, we've related stories about people in balconies. So you can actually do some incredible stuff, literally with a balcony garden. I've even seen sort of little bonsai trees, type things, with people, so they can get a tree, they can get some flowers, and birds will be attracted to them. Whether you're living at 27 floors above the ground, you'll see things. What you can do in your own garden. Again, I love the idea, as you said, the no May. No mow May, and
no mow summer, Tim.
Well, exactly. Now that might be a challenge for some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not sure plastic grass mows that well or grows that well. But
I'm not going to say I'm an advocate for it, but
so it's sad. But I think what we could say is, if you're thinking of covering your drive over, don't.
Yes.
Let's put a pond in there. Even if it's a tiny, like a little bird bath. Exactly. That sort of thing. It's amazing what you would attract.
Well, providing water for birds,
it's critical. Everyone thinks, you can put up feeders, you can do this and do that. And I would say, on the subject of feeders, clean the feeders regularly. And I think this is something that, in fact, Martin Hugh Games, who's going to be at the fair, he's going to be talking about, and he's helping a new company that are doing basically self-cleaning feeders, or similar type of thing. They're coming for the first time. So there's all sorts of things going on that we can help the birds, because it's already good at attracting them. But if they're getting some disease, because your feeders are so rubbish and so full of disease.
And that's because the food's going mouldy, isn't it?
Exactly. And then they catch this thing, I think it's called trichomonas. Or something like that.
Which has obviously affected chaffinches and greenfinches.
Exactly. I mean, you see things, with their feet about 10 times their normal size. So, so you can do an awful lot. But that's it. Water is as critical as food. I still believe, people say, we shouldn't feed during the summer. Rubbish. Because sadly our insect population, all right, we're lucky, we're looking at lots of insects on flowers here, but a lot of people won't have a lot of insects in their garden, so the birds need a little bit of extra
and I
protein.
feed all year round, and actually we've developed on the Wild Garden site, we've developed a year-round mix that I've made especially, which is a blend of lots of stuff, not obviously whole peanuts or half peanuts, so the chicks will choke or anything, but small granular stuff, which you can feed all year round, which, as you say, I think is beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. The only problem is, of course, now the price of, I'm told, of sunflower hearts
Cool,
is
yeah.
absolutely going through the
Yeah,
roof,
I can
going
imagine.
crazy. So
Yeah, yeah.
buy now and store it.
Yeah, quite, and then sell it on.
Yeah,
No, I'm
exactly.
joking.
Well,
No, but a great message, I think.
Yeah,
Tim.
I
water.
think so.
Adding water in general.
adding water is
Yeah.
really, really important.
Key to
and not just for drinking. Of course, they bathe. You know,
Absolutely.
They're not. You know, they use it for all that sort of purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
That, you know, and don't start trimming your hedges too early. You know, don't
Yeah.
start trimming in late May, June time.
Yeah.
And
Or even in September, October,
Yeah.
because of course then you're cutting off all the
all
berries, aren't you?
Exactly.
For all
exactly.
your field
yeah.
fairs, your
Yeah,
red wings, and
yeah,
everything.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's a very good message, Tim. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
Well, I've enjoyed it. Believe me, it's reminiscing over all the
Yeah.
years. You know, you think, oh God,
I bet you didn't
I'm
think
sure
me
there's 100
coming here
stories.
would bring out so many stories from
I
you.
know, that's the problem. I haven't let too many secrets out the bag.
Not bad ones, anyway.
Yeah, as long as the tax man doesn't find me.
Yeah, but no.
Right.
So I'm very, very grateful for your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
I'm very, very grateful for your efforts, for obviously providing me with the the platform to promote what I do
Yeah.
in part, and for just being a general voice for nature. I think that you've
Thank
been
you.
over the
Yeah,
many
yeah.
decades. It's commendable, and obviously the royal family thought so. So
Well, someone.
yeah,
Oh, oyster catcher.
Oyster
just going
catcher
over.
is going behind your head. I can
Yeah,
see him.
Yeah.
There he is.
Oh,
Look.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Brilliant.
I won't mind that.
Oh, what a
everything on.
nice end.
Yeah.
Oh, super.
But no, thank you. And so obviously anybody watching this, the Global Bird Fair, 15th to 17th of July.
Yep.
Do come along. It will be an absolutely wonderful event, I promise you. And good luck, Tim, in the last 2 weeks to get this on.
I'm off.
Yeah, I'm going to let Tim get on and do what he does best. And thank you again, Tim.
Okay.
Really
Well,
been
great.
a huge pleasure.
Well, for me as well, believe me. And
Really, oh, good.
please do come, do support,
Yes.
and do support his company. It's incredible. I mean, what he is doing, and I'm serious about this. It isn't because he's sitting there. I've known him right from the start, from a long time now. And the work, you just got to look at his website, look at his Twitter handle, all the different social media, to see the inspiration that people are getting from seeing their gardens transformed from a bowl into something really special. So well done you as well.
Thank you.
You're making a massive change to a lot of people.
Thank you. Well, hopefully an MBE in time, eh?
Oh, I don't know.
Got another
I'll
30 years to go.
Tell
yeah.
you what, when I put that on eBay, I'll let you know. All right. When I'm that desperate.
I'll bid on it. Brilliant.
Good,
Well,
okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please do follow the Global Bird Fair, obviously, on all the social media outlets. Twitter, Instagram, and check out globalbirdfair.org. I'll put a link in the description below where you can get your tickets online, obviously, and follow Tim and his wonderful work, and of course Global Birding, which is the other sort of side to it, isn't it? Which of course is your yearly event, twice yearly, isn't it? So
Best say goodbye.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for watching. I really appreciate the support, and as I say, do come along to the Bird Fair if you can this year. Although I have an inkling that I might not be able to get this video out before the Bird Fair, but I have obviously done a previous one to this.
Exactly.
So if you are watching this and it's the middle of winter, then plan your year next year to come and visit the Global Bird Fair and check out the website for the latest information and updates. And thank you, as I say, please feel free to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Give the video a like, and I'll be sure to bring you many more videos on the creation of my little wildlife plot at the Bird Fair in videos to come. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.